Welcome to the Living Room Online Literary Series produced and hosted by M.L. Liebler, internationally recognized Michigan poet, editor, publisher, literary activist, university professor, and performance artist. This program, number 21 in the series, was presented April 11th, 2021, and it features poets John Densmore and Rubin Guevara. Here then is M.L. Liebler.
Well, we're really happy to have John Densmore in the Living Room series, along with Rubin Guevara, who many of you met here in Detroit. He was here when people used to come and do readings live. And he did a couple of readings here and in Ann Arbor, and people really enjoyed him. And they've been asking, when's Ruben coming back? Well, I hope Ruben's going to come back in person soon, since we're all getting vaccinated. And we're gonna start with him. I want to just mention that the Living Room series is sponsored by the Detroit Writers Guild, of which I am the president of, or the director, I can't remember. And then Wayne State University, of course, poets and writers are always part of it. And the Book Beat. Now, I want to mention that the Book Beat does have signed copies of John's book and of Ruben's book. And there's limited availability on the signed copies, but if you want one, you better get quick, and we'll put it in the chat, the link to Book Beat, and maybe Carrie will come on from the Book Beat soon and talk about it. So that's the special part of it. The sponsorship and all that sort of thing. We're really pleased. Today's going to be a great day, and there's a lot of reasons. I've been reading John's book, finished John's book, also listening to him reading it, which is quite good. I like the drum in the background, and that gets a little beat going for Bob Marley, a little reggae, and different stuff. But we're going to start with Rubin Guevara. He is a pioneer of Chicano rock. Ruben, I don't know if I practice saying, is it Funk the Hootie? What is it? How do you say that?
Funk a waddle.
What?
Funk a waddle.
Oh, okay. I'm glad. Oh, there is an L on there. Okay. Well, anyway. Known to us as Ruben from Ruben and the Jets. He performed with Frank Zappa, Johnny Otis, who's great, Bo Diddley, Tina Turner. There's a great documentary on her right now. Celia Cruz. Though he is best known as a frontman of the 1970s experimental rock band Ruben and the Jets. Here he recounts how his youthful experiences in the barrio of La Vienta of Santa Monica in the 1940s prepared him for early success in music, and how his triumphs and seductive brushes with stardom were met with tragedy and crushing disappointment. Brutally honest and open, his book, which Carrie does have at Book Beat signed, Confessions of a Radical Chicano Doo-Wop Singer, from the University of California Press. It's a great book. It fills in a lot of information that you might have wondered about Ruben. Someone said, well, what is Ruben? I said, well, he's a singer, he's a poet, he's an activist. He's got the whole thing going on. So please welcome to our stage, Rubin Guevara.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Mr. ML. And again, thank you for inviting me last year to your campus. It was and for the Detroit library, I guess we read, right? It was a trip, man. I dug it. But thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to start with, I guess I can start with the beginning of my career. By 65, I was a solo artist, and I got invited. I did an audition for a national TV show called Shindig. And I was thrilled because the show was going to have Tina Turner and my hero, Bo Diddley, on. And I got the audition, I got the gig. So here goes from that chapter from my book. It's called Shindig. Another reason I wanted to do this show was because Miss Hot Thing, Tina Turner, was going to be on. And so was my rock and roll hero, Bo Diddley. One of the first rock and roll records I bought in 55 was Bo Diddley. And here I am on the same bill and even sharing my dressing room with him. For the taping of the show, I sang to a pre-recorded track and got it in one take. I was on fire. And basically, I was trying to impress Tina. So let's see. After the taping, I spotted her sitting alone in the empty auditorium. I didn't see Ike around, so I made my move. Hi, I said, I'm Jay. I was using the name Jay at that time. I'm Jay. And she said, hi, I'm Tina. Where'd you learn to sing like that? She asked. Not quite sure what I was since there weren't too many Mexican soul singers around at the time. I grew up in LA, listening to R&B. The tune I just did was Bobby Blue Bland's Don't Cry No More, I said, all confident. Oh, wow, yeah, I recognize that. She smiled at me with her perfect, bright, shiny teeth. She was probably around 25. I was 22. And oh, yeah, her legs. They were fine, fine, super fine. And like the cocky kid I was, I wanted them. Bo was very gracious and cool with me. He didn't complain about having to share his dressing room. Before the broadcast, in front of a live audience, we talked about life as a musician over his bottle of gin. He said it was tough, but worth it. And I said I was never going to give up and passed him the bottle. Then we went out and rocked the show. The lineup also included Jackie DeShannon, Billy Preston on Hammond B3 with the Shin Dogs House Band and the vocal group The Blossoms. I was in a tribute medley for Bo, singing Bo Diddley, and then a surf medley of all things, my solo spot, and the closing finale with Bo and Tina and the cast on Can Your Monkey Do the Dog. I was launched. I was on my way. I was in rock and roll heaven, and Tina was on my radar. After my smashing debut, I got the offer to be a regular on the show. Finally, I was going to make a living from this crazy business, but for some stupid reason, the format was changed to two 30-minute shows, airing twice a week. The audience didn't tune in, and the show got canceled before I could shing-a-ling into a mansion in the Hollywood Hills. There went my dreams. There went Tina, all up in smoke. Yeah, man, that was quite a trip. That was quite a trip.
I'll just say that
Yeah,
when you were visiting my students, you showed them that clip, which is an
right.
amazing clip.
You know,
Excuse me, if I may interrupt, you watch the clip and Ruben blows Tina off stage. Oh, excuse me.
excuse me.
He is really good. That's on YouTube, isn't it, Ruben?
Actually, no, it was taken down, but check it out. I have it's a little premature, but I guess I can say it. My son's working on a documentary on my life, which, John, you're going to be in it, right, bro? Okay. We're going to interview you. So anyway, that clip will be in that documentary. And that's going to air, I think, in October. It's a PBS KCET episode called Artbound. So look for that in the fall. Okay, somebody wanted to know about my activist background. It started in '66. What was known as the Sunset Strip riots. I don't know if John, do you remember that, man? Were you there for that? It was up there
Of course. Sure.
Pandora's Box.
Yep.
Okay, so my first foray into social protest and activism was during what became known as the Sunset Strip riots of 1966. Although they were merely demonstrations, no one was killed, no buildings were burned down, aside from a police car that somebody allegedly torched. Young people forging a new counterculture habitually congregated on the strip, drawn to the scene in and around clubs featuring psychedelic music and recreational drug use. Local officials imposed a 10 p.m. curfew on the area, attempted to close the businesses that attracted crowds, and sent in police officers to clear the streets. I got involved when Larry, an ex-con and manager of Chicken Delight, where I was working at the time, organized some of the drivers for the demonstration to preserve Pandora's Box nightclub coffee house at the corner of Sunset and Crescent Heights. And actually, I sang there with an earlier group, the Apollo Brothers, in '62. We opened for the OJs. Cool little coffee shop. Did you ever go there, John? Pandora's
Yeah.
Box?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Larry made me a placard which read, "Give me liberty or give me Debs." Ernest E. Debs was the LA County supervisor behind the move to tear down the club. I was crossing the street in front of the other marchers, proudly waving my sign, shouting, "Save Pandora's Box," when a cop came up to me, pulled me aside, and gave me a jaywalking ticket. It was an interesting moment, facing off with helmeted police officers with face guards and riot gear all around me. It reminded me of the TV footage of the Black Civil Rights marches in the South. I felt I was doing something important yet dangerous. What was important about the so-called riots was it was the first time that predominantly white LA youths came together to protest police brutality. This was the beginning of my activism and reminded me of my commitment to music. So that was an interesting little moment. Yeah. Somebody wanted to know also how I met Zappa, Frank Zappa, my mentor. And so one day in '69, my girlfriend handed me an album, Cruising with Ruben and the Jets by Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. She said it reminded her of me, since I told her I used to sing doo-wop back in the day. And of course, because my name was also Ruben. I listened to the album, and at first I didn't get it. It sounded like a sarcastic joke. But still, we decided to go check them out at their upcoming album release concert. I was curious to see what the Zappa cat had up his sleeve. I remembered hearing his first double album, Freak Out, back in '66, and being impressed by his bizarre avant rock and roll. And the inscription, "The present-day Pachuco refuses to die," on the Cruising album also got my attention. How could this freaky dude know anything about Pachucos? Who and what was this cat all about? The Shrine Exposition Hall was a cavernous space with high ceilings. The music boomed out, reminding me of the time I played at the El Monte Legion Stadium. Maybe that was the reason for playing there. The audience was a weird and wild mix of hippies and a few Mexican kids sprinkled in. Maybe they thought Ruben and the Jets was a real band and came to hear them play R&B oldies but goodies. The show started with a group of girls singing some old doo-wop standard. They were young and unpolished, but their hearts were into it. Then the band started to play tunes from the album. The lead singer, Ray Collins, used to sing with little Julian Herrera's backup group, the Tigers. It was great. Then I got it. They were doing a parody of a doo-wop garage band. I dug the boldness of that, playing R&B in the middle of the psychedelic rock scene. At intermission, I suggested we try to go backstage and tell Zappa what a trip the set was. My girlfriend, who was a high fashion model, could dress like nobody's business. That night, she was wearing a midnight blue sheer chiffon miniskirt, electric blue suede high heels. I was wearing a brown Clint Eastwood fistful of dollars suede flat-brimmed hat, brown leather coat, black shirt with a mariachi bow tie, custom-made rust leather pants, and the custom-made green suede knee boots I'd worn on Shindig. As we approached the burly security guards, they just nodded and swung the doors open for us, and we walked straight in. No questions, no badges. I guess my girlfriend and I looked good together. I guess we looked like movie stars. We made our way to Frank's dressing room, and I walked into a room full of hippies with their kids. I think his son Dweezil and his daughter Moon Unit were among them. I went up to Frank and told him how much I dug his set, and especially that he was bringing back R&B doo-wop vocal harmonies. Then I said, I used to sing a little. I had a record out in the early 60s with the Apollo Brothers. And by the way, my name is Ruben. He took a long look at me with his dark, steely eyes and said, that's a grand name. Then after another long pause and stare, are you still singing? I didn't know what to say at first since I had no interest in getting back into rock at that time. But then out of courtesy, I said, I have some demos I was working on. Took another long look and said, why don't you drop them off at my office sometime? I'll take a listen. Okay, sure. But I never did. A few months after, getting back to the activism, that was 69 when I met Frank, first time at the Shrine. In 71, I created a gospel rock cantata, a 12-piece gospel group, 10-piece band, some African-American modern dancers. Anyway, it was a protest against the Vietnam War. So I was combining activism and art, theater at this moment. And the point again was to make a statement about the Vietnam War at the time. And that came in 71. So after I did that, I ran into a friend that was a piano player in his band, Bob Harris. And I told him I was into a theater scene, and he said, well, I'm going to go see Zappa tonight on some business. Do you want to come with me? So I said, sure, man, let's go. So as we drove up Laurel Canyon, I had flashbacks of working at Chicken Delight back in '66. We passed the notorious log cabin where Zappa and his clan once lived, along with the GTOs. About whom I was, I don't know how I survived speeding around those curves stoned and in the rain, delivering boxes of chicken. But hey, it meant at least a couple bucks tip if you got the chicken there hot. So now, just a few years later, I'm on my way to see the Wild Wizard of Rock. Life's a stone trip, all right. We got to his tree-shrouded home, and surprisingly, he answered the door himself. I said, we met a few years ago at the Shrine for the Cruising with Ruben and the Jets album release show, I said. Yeah, I remember you. You're Ruben. Right. Sorry, I never took up your offer on those demos, but I went back to college. I want to write music for films. He didn't say anything. Just come on in. We walked into his studio, which burst with guitars and sound equipment. So you used to sing a little R&B, huh? Yeah, in high school, in the 60s, and then I put together a trio, the Apollo Brothers. We cut a single in 61, sang around town, did a little TV, played the Legion once, the El Monte Legion Stadium. Yeah, with Richard Berry and the Olympics, too. That led to an all-night session of listening to his collection of R&B oldies. Here we were, a couple of grown-up men tripping on old records like we were teenagers. That was the beginning of our bond, our love for LA rhythm and blues. Then we talked about my discovering modern music composers at LA City College, like Bartok and Stravinsky in particular. We talked about how they weaved ethnic folk music into new musical and theatrical forms, which was how I interpreted his Ruben and the Jets garage doo-wop band. I saw it as Mexican American rock theater, though in a very primitive form, which was cool with me. I took a copy of Billboard with me that had reviews of Who Are the People and his recent collaboration with the LA Philharmonic at UCLA next to it. That got his attention. As the sun was coming up, he made a proposal. How would you like to stage a real Ruben and the Jets? I'll produce the album. You can tour with the Mothers as an opening band to promote it. I told him, thanks, man. It's a damn groovy offer, but I'm not interested in going back to rock and roll. I don't want to move backwards. Besides, too many detours. He stared at me for a long time and with those dark eyes then said, take what you know and build your own roads. So with that, I agreed. We put a band together and we hit the road and we toured with Three Dog Night, Wes Bruce and Lang, and T-Rex. It was a trip, you know, it was great. We played in front of 40,000 people at Royal Stadium, Kansas City. And the following week, we were in a little club in New York, Max's Kansas City. Hey, John, did you ever play Max's Kansas City?
Yep.
Yeah, tiny, huh?
Tiny.
Tiny. But you know what the trip there was, the marquee, what blew my mind was, before us was Bob Marley and the Wailers. And then we were in the slot next to that. And after us was Bruce Springsteen and the East Street Band. So that's a nice memory, cool memory. All right, where am I? Where am I here? Okay, somebody, oh yeah, Denise wanted to hear me read this poem in my book, called La Virgencita de Boyle Heights. Denise, well, she told me her husband calls it Jelly Roll Gumdrop. That's pretty funny. Anyway, I went to Mexico on a tour with Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong to promote his new movie Born in East LA. And we went to so here we go. When I went to Mexico with Cheech in '87 for the Born in East LA film promo tour, we stopped in Ajijic, a small town by Lake Chapala in Chapala, Jalisco. We visited their small Catholic church where I saw an altar and an encased shrine dedicated to their own local Virgencita, to their own local Virgin. Seeing that a town could have their own Blessed Virgin, I thought, why not Boyle Heights? In 2006, I wrote the following poem that's in my CD, The Tao of Funkawatl, and was inspired by that visit and realization. La Virgencita de Boyle Heights. Virgencita, your serene, sensual smile breathes eternal bliss, carries me through streets of hope and despair, of pain and alegría, through broken homes and dreams. Virgencita, your immaculate soul breathes through the sacred pores of my sin-scarred skin. I can taste it in the heat of chiles and passion, in the sweet smell of fresh masa and lipstick, in the ecstasy of mole poblano and salvation, in the pure innocence of quinceañeras, bodas, bautismos, in the stark, bitter truth of death. Virgencita, I sense, feel your elegant, incandescent grace radiate and shine through the playful eyes and sonrisas of the hungry children, in the desperate tears of los desperados, en los ojos sabios de los abuelitos y abuelitas, in the primal soulful grito del mariachi, in the lurid glow of morning neon, in the perfect promise of tomorrow. Virgencita, please watch over me, cover me with your benevolent, luminous angel baby eyes. Follow me with your generous divine compassion. Lead me to the altar of your tender heart, to forgiveness, to love. Virgencita, please never forget or leave Boyle Heights, land of 1,000 culturas, land of 1,000 memories, land of 1,000 dances, land of 1,000 dreams. Virgencita Preciosa de Boyle Heights, please hear me. I belong to you, and we belong together. Por vida, con Safos. So that's for Denise. Okay, I guess I'm getting close here to the end. I'm gonna close up with my big comeback in 2010. I put a new band together called the East Side Lovers. I put a record out, a CD and vinyl, called The Tao of Funkawatl. It's available. So Louis Pettis and Los Lobos invited me to open for them at the House of Blues here in Hollywood on the Sunset Strip before they closed it down. And my compadre here, Mr. Densmore, was on that gig with me. So let me close by reading that, if I may. In late 2010, Luis Perez of Los Lobos contacted me about opening for his band at the House of Blues. What a break. I worked out, slept right, ate right, did all I could do right to get ready for the big comeback show. The Great Spirit was watching my back after all. But unfortunately, and true to form, 2 weeks before the show, I came down with a nasty cold. I couldn't shake it. The weird thing was I hadn't had a cold in years. Then my right leg got tight and sore again. I went to a physical therapist for a workout routine. I wound up overdoing what he prescribed and my leg got worse. I couldn't sleep, talk, or walk. I got scared and started praying and meditating big time. The night before the gig, I couldn't sleep. The biggest show of my musical rebirth, and I couldn't even say my name, let alone sing it. The day arrived, I did some deep breathing, stretched a little, meditated, and drove to the gig, stopping along the way to buy a dozen red roses to throw out to the audience. The gig fee was a lot less what I negotiated with was Lobo's manager, but this would be a great platform to relaunch my career. It turned out Los Lobos were going to pay us from their share of the gig. Now that's brotherhood in action. When I got to the club, our road manager greeted me with the news that we had to put up a credit card to cover the people that came in over the guest limit, over the guest list limit, a tidy sum of $750. He went on to say the band couldn't play until the card was given to the box office. I tried to remember my teaching to breathe deep and accept the moment and let the drama flow through me. I gave them my credit card with only about $200 in the bank, not really caring because it was all just too crazy. Rock and roll, you gotta love it. This wasn't supposed to happen. The creator was supposed to have my back. That was the pact we made back at Joshua Tree. What the hell? Limping up to my dressing room was depressing. My throat hadn't improved. I could barely talk, never mind sing. We had about 10 minutes for what passes a sound check, no vocal mic check, no amps and drums. Then I'm told our set is cut from 40 minutes to 30. What a welcome. What a nightmare. Creator, are you sure you're with me? My younger son, Rubencito, showed up in my dressing room, and that helped me snap out of it a bit. He told me that my other son, Ben, was also there. Damn, both my sons. They were here for me, though I haven't always been there for them. Thanks to my homies, John Valadez and Francesco Siqueiros, for giving up their tickets to my sons when they saw they couldn't get in. Seeing Rubencito and Ben finally lifted my spirits. I felt it was important to share the event with them to show that a man at 68 can still craft his art against all odds. I put on my Tibetan quilt pants, a vintage Chaz Bojorquez graffiti t-shirt, my coat from Bali, my Brazilian canvas leopard skin shoes, my rust-colored Panama straw hat, my leopard skin floor-length bathrobe, and shades. Funko Waddle never looked so good. I was ready for action. I was ready to die on stage if necessary. I went over the set list with Steve and Bob. It was time. Funko Waddle was at another moment of truth. El momento de verdad, the most dangerous moment of a bullfight, when the matador finally kills the bull or gets killed. Both are exhausted and wounded, and one wrong move, and either one could go down, usually the man. The curtain was down as I hobbled across the stage to check the microphone. I thought I'd at least get that. I yelled, "Checking," and the sound technician told me that they were ready. "Yeah, but I'm not," I yelled. As the curtain started going up, I heard cheering from the audience. It surprised me. There was a rainstorm going on, and I thought the place would be empty, at least for the opening band. The curtain was halfway up, and I saw it was a full house. Stunned, I instinctively swung into professional mode. We started with At the East Side Love, not the best opener, but a good way to place the band as being from East LA, and set up a jazzy blues rock vibe in the room. The band was on and was sounding great. Unfortunately, there were no drums in my monitors. Still, we received a decent response. A few diehard fans from the East Side Love showed up, and that was encouraging. I still felt disconnected from the band because of the drums missing in my monitor, but I moved forward, totally on instinct, like a blind and deaf migrating bird, singing and flying through a lightning storm. I invited John Densmore from the Doors to join us on the spoken word piece CS. He performed it with us on a djembe, an African hand drum. We've been performing it together over the past couple of years as a duo at community fundraisers. There was a roar from the crowd when he walked out. We got into it as best we could, neither of us able to hear the drums. I was exhausted from dancing and shouting, but I felt we were finally connecting with the audience as I danced across the stage, throwing out roses to the crowd. I ended the piece with, "Won't you listen to what the walls have to say, LA? All they're saying is, que viva Los Angeles, que viva Yagna, que viva mi tierra, que viva Aztlán. Hey, long live LA." We didn't have a solid ending for the tune, so I ended it kind of suddenly and anticlimactically. It felt like a dud. Plus, I wasn't sure how the house sound mix was. But we got some solid feedback that we did a killer show. Evidently, it was great. Even Lobo David Hidalgo dug it, and the band did play their asses off. I was starting to feel better. Then I remembered the $750 door tab. I decided not to let it faze me. Screw the tab. Densmore heard about my predicament and offered to cover half. And agreed not to get paid, and their small fee went to the tab. Now that's professionalism and brotherhood to the max. Was it worth it? Well, it was worth David Hidalgo's compliment, and Louis Perez said he wanted to do it again. But was it worth it? Well, there were a few moments, a few sparks of fire lightning that lit up and tore up the nightmare. And after all, that's what I live for. To hot wire rock and roll, to live or die in a song. But the most meaningful part of the evening was having my two sons there. They are my true legacy. They reminded me what's really valuable in life can't be measured by achievements, no matter how great. And I wanted to remind them that age is just a number, and they too should follow their own dreams, even late in life. A rock and roll career is a footnote in history at best, but your kids, they're forever. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I have one more poem that I want to read if I can. Do we have time?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I'll just mention as a setup for that John and Ruben have agreed to answer some questions. So whether you're on Facebook, where I think a good number of people are, you can ask the questions there. We have an expert monitoring that in Denise Sedman. And you can ask it if you're on the Zoom link as well, or just speak up when the time comes. So back to you, Ruben.
Yeah, the reason why I want to read this is my latest poem. I haven't written much. I was pretty much laid up during, lockdown and all that shit. But I think it's a good one. I hope you like it. I'll end it with this. It's called Where is the Poem? Is it in the silent sound of the full moon rising? In the sudden flutter of frightened wings? In the musical mist of rain clouds? In the virgin wind whispering surrender? Or is it in the heart of a broken heart, in the desperate moans between the sheet, in the lying cries of betrayal, in the dreams of broken souls? Or is it in the last breath of George Floyd, in the sickening sorrow stuck in a tear, in the blood on the streets on fire, in the rabid sneer of a racist COVID nation? Or is it in the shattered heart of forgiveness, in the tenacious, fierce courage of hope, in the healing grace of salvation, in the radiant redemption of reciprocal love? Or is it in the blinding radiance of the sun's truth, in the dust of stars, in the eyes of storms, in the mysterious wail of a gut-wrenching soul song by Creator? All right, that's it for me, man.
Yeah.
Okay, John, take
Well, I'm not going to do a lot of an introduction for John, but I want to just do one, based on the humanity of John and the band that he was in, because, and I'm going to try to hold the book up here. Oh, and Ruben, we'll want you to hold your book up too to the camera, but. This is the new book by John Densmore. I've read his other books as well. This is really an interesting new book that touches on many, many different artists and writers who would be famous to many of the writers that listen to the program, the Living Room program. And I know many writers out there will be familiar with some of these names that I'm going to mention. The Doors, I mean, they're a big part of my own story, which you can read about in my memoir, and I promised I wouldn't mention that. That's forthcoming. There is a chapter called The Doors, actually. And it has a lot to do with, the fact that they were a poetry band. And when I went to see them in 1968 as a young teenager, and, it blew me away as kind of a performance piece versus a rock concert. Of course, rock concerts were pretty new back then on a big scale. But what I then discovered later, I taught a class on rock and roll and the literary spirit or something like that many years ago at Wayne. And I was showing the students a Doors concert. And it dawned on me after all those years and watching it on a film or a tape or whatever it was, that they weren't doing a rock concert. They were doing a performance, a poetry performance is what it was. And then after reading The Seekers, John has so many connections to writers and artists of all types that it just shows the wide breadth of John's background and taste, which I think you'll find pretty amazing by looking at The Seekers. And also, of course, Jim Morrison's a poet, and Ray's, I knew Ray was a poetry person because I opened for him and Michael McClure, and he gave me a famous poetry essay in Atlantic that he would read on the plane. And he said, "I love poetry. You got to read this," And then I worked with him after that a few times as well. And I knew the deep literary connection through McClure and everyone. So this is a band that is about as well-rounded in the arts, and John especially. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that is in this book and the people that he is connected with. So let's welcome John Densmore of The Doors and the Butt Band.
Thank you, ML. Thanks for sending all that helium up my skull.
I didn't mean to.
That's okay. It's a good high, natural. First, I want to say it's a real pleasure to be on the same bill with mi amigo Ruben. In fact, as a salute to you, Ruben, I put a little of this reposado in my tequila I want you to look at the label here. See that label?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it reminded me of your middle name.
Fuck the Hootie?
Anyway, so ML, you're going to ask me some questions, right? I've got maybe 3 sections of my book, only like a paragraph each, which I will read. But probably I'd like to read them maybe in answer to some of your questions or whatever.
Yeah, I do. I thought it would be good with this particular book if you could just set it up and talk about that classic book that inspired you to do The Seekers. And then as I was riding my bike today, The Who came on singing The Seekers. So, and I thought about that book that had inspired you. But can you, more or less that introductory stuff about how you got the idea to, and what it meant to you to go, look into your heroes, so to speak, and your people that have had a big impact on you.
Yeah, well, there was this in the 1800s, this Russian Armenian mystic writer Gurdjieff, who wrote a book called Meetings with Remarkable Men, which was about, there was a cult film made with Terence Stamp about musicians trying to play so well they catch God's ear. And I wanted to do a tip of the hat to all these various artists that fed me. And it hit me. Meetings with Remarkable Musicians. There's the title, so that's where that came from. And it's real diverse. I've got Gustavo Dudamel, the conductor of the LA Phil, and I can't believe in the same book I have my mom and Lou Reed. I never saw that coming. But that's like the Doors, a real American melting pot. I had jazz, Robbie had flamenco and folk, and Ray had Chicago blues and classical, and Jim was a literary dude. So The Seekers represents all that diversity. Bob Marley, classical music, it all fed me. Elvin Jones was my idol, Coltrane's drummer. So that's what I did. I thank you to all these people. And importantly, if you're a piano player, but nobody hears you're playing, or you paint a painting and nobody sees it, you're still going into the same zone as these icons. And as we know, music is medicine for the soul, and it's a good thing to do, especially during this crazy time. So if you can find 20 minutes or longer every day, you're going into the same area that all these great artists like Ruben and whoever.
Yeah, no.
All right.
That's a good point. One of the things I'd been mentioning to you as we've been corresponding in the book is the many, many Detroit connections that I'm sure you didn't think about necessarily. You were writing about, starting with Elvin Jones, who is he's from Pontiac, but he really kind of made his early bones here in Detroit and is considered a Detroit artist. He had 2 brothers, I think, Hank Jones,
yeah,
Elvin Jones, and it seems like there was a third one.
Yeah, there is, but I got me.
Yeah. So so that starts with that, but then, all the way through, you get into, and this is what's amazing to maybe the non-musician or non-musical people per se, you get into Robert Bly, you get into Ram Dass, you get into the classical, you get into that acting teacher, Peggy. Was it Fury? Peggy Fury?
Peggy Fury, correct.
In all of these stories, what's happening is that you are also revealing aspects of yourself. I mean, I'm sure you may have, if you hadn't thought of that, you do it nicely. Like, for example, I didn't know you were into acting. I didn't know before I met you per se, or, was talking to Ruben about it, that you were as involved in poetry as you are, and you're a very literate person. which again is not the expected aspect of a rock musician per se, or really any anybody in popular music and so forth. But you're very well read, and your personality in a good way comes through in all of these stories, and I found that interesting as hell. Do you want to talk about Elvin Jones and what he meant to you, since he's from these parts?
Sure. So I went to Tijuana and got my fake draft card, which got me into Shelley's Manhole, and said I was 21, and the doorman looked at it and knew it was fake and let me in anyway. And I saw John Coltrane many times, and I knew it was important, but I didn't know it was going to be this iconic stuff, amazing stuff. But I did know that the drummer was like, the first job of a drummer is to keep the groove. You have to have the pocket, otherwise none of the flash means anything. Elvin had that, but he constantly, every 4 bars, was churning up what jazz critics later called polyrhythms. And man, I ate it up. And I realized later that it kind of affected the way I pushed Morrison with his poetry, and kind of had a conversation with him, watching Elvin have a conversation with Coltrane. So,
oh wow!
After Coltrane died, I saw Elvin, and I got the courage to bring him my first self-centered memoir. I have 3, and I quickly said, "Elvin, in here I wrote, you gave me my hands." I was worried that he would be condescending, and he wasn't. He was warm as toast. And then by the end of his life, I would take his drum set to the car when he was in town. So a true mentor.
Yeah, and you even picked up some chops that you used in some of your own music that you talk about in there too. Ways that he plays, certain ways that he plays, and nailing his drums down.
Yeah, and right. I've got some Art Blakey press rolls and a couple Doors songs, and there's this Chico Hamilton did this great ride cymbal thing, which is in the end, the song in the end. I mean, I don't directly copy, but you let what influences you wash over you, and it comes out in your uniqueness. So you know what? Etheridge Knight, Detroit poet extraordinaire. I think he was nominated National Book Award. I know Gwendolyn Brooks was his mentor. This is a signed copy. I met him through Robert Bly, and I have a chapter on Robert Bly. And just a little quickie from this book. I can find it.
Is that a broadside book that you're holding?
This is a Broadside Press original signed by Etheridge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty. See, Broadside Press, you may not be as aware of, and some in the audience may not be, but it was the first African-American press. Major presses wouldn't touch Gwendolyn Brooks or Amiri Baraka, Leroy Jones at the time, or Etheridge Knight first. So Dudley started it. And I think that's a picture of Dudley on the back with Etheridge.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
That is him, yeah.
All right. Well, so this is just a little quickie. It's called Jazz Drummer. Wait a minute. I can't see it. How about that? I am 76. So I'm going to adjust the light. Jazz Drummer. Max Roach has fire and steel in his hands, rides high, is a Macabell warrior, tastes death on his lips, bears babies from worn out wombs, beats babies from worn out wombs, grins with grace and cries in the middle of his eyes. Max Roach thumps the big circle in bare feet, opens wide the big arms, and like the sea calls us all.
Wow.
So over the years, I've evolved into performing several of Etheridge's poems while playing hand drums. And he fed me greatly, and I'm pushing him out there.
Oh, that's fabulous, man.
Yeah.
Well, now you're saying that, and Ruben and I had been talking about we should be doing something when things get back to normal at Beyond Baroque poetry performance. You doing those poems would be fantastic. With the hand drum.
I played with Kamal Daoud at Beyond Baroque, I don't know, before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I get fed, like if it's a few hundred people or thousands of people at Madison Square Garden, that's not the point. It's the process. It's the moment. And it's as exciting as having mass adulation because you're connecting on that's the tragedy of COVID. Like we miss live music so much, So.
Yeah, no, that's what you said. And that was giving me some ideas too, this whole connectivity and so forth. I thought about that. So it's the book's philosophical. And then you get into Patti Smith, who isn't from Detroit, but she really spent her formative years here. And then you even give our homeboy, Fred Sonic Smith, a shout out in that chapter. Do you want to talk a little bit about Patti Smith and your encounter?
Sure. Incredibly gifted and incredibly humble, just a real person, not full of herself at all. And, she, what does she do? Jumpstart the entire punk music movement. And then she goes on to win the National Book Award for Just Kids. Talk about a Renaissance person. So very inspiring. Just like Ruben is a Renaissance dude, Maybe all this stuff comes from the same source, poetry, music. Actually, I have this theory in prose, my prose, that the length of a sentence is a musical question. And if it's short, it's percussive. If it's long, then it's melodic. Or it's too long and you need to edit. So anyway, that's how I connect all this stuff.
Well, the whole Patti Smith experience. I mean, again, this is the diversity of what's going on in this book. And you said something earlier. I mean, I would disagree with you that these memoirs or these books where you talk about aspects of your life at times. I don't find them to be whatever you said that the memoir was for yourself.
Self-centered.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, that was a joke. I should have grabbed my drums and gone, but up.
Yeah, because that's one thing that's good about these books that you've done. I've read them all, Unhinged and now this new one, and I think about that because I'm working on that same kind of project. And how much do you want to be self-centered, so to speak? And I didn't find that at all.
As long ML, if it's coming from the heart, you're okay.
Okay, good. So then I'm just looking at some of these things. One of the things there's two things I just noticed. One is your experience with Van the Man, which is a reason why I never wanted to meet Van the Man. There's two people I never wanted to meet. I could have met Morrison, but I didn't want to meet Dylan or Van. And I got very close to meeting Van, not as close as you did when you did the Hollywood Bowl with him. But I had an opportunity, and before I pushed that backstage door, I said, you know what? I don't want to do this. And now after reading your book, your Van story, it makes sense. But even in the early days, you mentioned in the earlier days, you had come across Van, like in performances at various places around town when I guess with them, the group Them. Unless he was on his own by the time that you didn't you do some shows or you cross paths with him
Okay.
earlier?
I'll break down the Van Morrison chapter quickly. Yeah, we were the house band at the Whiskey, and we played with everybody, opened, and them was coming to town. We were really excited. We had a version of Gloria in our set. We took it out of respect, and they were great. We became friends, and we actually played Gloria, both bands, all together the last night before they went back to the old sod. Two Morrisons, two drummers. It was cool. So, and then Van, of course, has this magnificent career. So not too long ago, I get a call. Would I like to sit in with him at the Hollywood Bowl playing Gloria? Duh. Yeah. He's doing Astral Weeks, one of my favorite albums of all time. And the first half is oldies. He's closing with Gloria. So I go down and rehearse, and Van's nowhere to be found. And but they know the tunes, so we're cool. But then they say there's going to be this Bo Diddley section in Gloria, and I'm like, "Oh, are you sure?" And they go, "Well, we don't know." And I said, "Well, I gotta know, or I'll mess that up." And they said, "Well, it's up to Van." I said, "Well, where is he?" And they said, "Why don't we ask him?" And you could tell they were kind of nervous about that. I said, "Well, I'll ask him." So I go to the dressing room, pound on the door. "Van, it's John Densmore. Are we doing the Bo Diddley in the middle of Gloria?" And he goes, "Whatever you want." Okay. Okay. So, I'm real inspired. They have 15 musicians because of Astral Weeks, and I'm having a good time. I know the song. I come back, and the manager says to me, so the deal is you and Van will go out for the encore of the first half, and Van will introduce you and you'll go into Gloria. Fair enough. We'll walk out. Van does not introduce me. And I'm standing in front of 10,000 people, not knowing what to do. And they go into the song because it's dead air. I see a tambourine under the backup singers. I grab that and start playing. And, I'm not happy, but I look like I'm supposed to be doing that. Then I go over to the drummer, and we are trying to switch in the middle of the song. And, there's no way that 4 bars will be gone and Van will turn around scowling. So I just play the tambourine happily. And then it's over, and Van can't be found, and the managers apologize and blah, blah, blah. Then they put out a live album of the evening, and they credit me playing tambourine.
I got that album.
Hey. So it was difficult for me to listen to Van in the car. I'd switch it. But then I after a few months, I heard we were born before the wind, also younger than the sun, and the bonny both is one as we sailed into the mystic. Oh my God, what a gift. I mean, Jim was very difficult, and he gave us stuff. So I'm cool, Van. Love you.
Yeah, I think he's itching to get on the road for a guy that doesn't really like to be around people, but he'll be back on the road ASAP, I think. And so then what's the John Densmore acting aspect? You worked with Peggy.
I stumbled into this class. She was who's the famous acting teacher? She was his disciple.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about in New York.
Yeah. And I realized that, wow, this is really making me nervous. I don't have my drums. I'm the instrument. This is going to be good for me, because the downside of a peak like the Doors is so steep. You know, people get into drugs, or, you know, and I realized later that I really wanted to write my own words rather than act. But it was a wonderful couple of years of being fed by a brilliant teacher about life as well as acting.
Lee Strasberg.
That's it.
That's the guy. So what did you do? Did you do some commercials and bit parts in films, or?
No commercials. I did bit parts in TV and films a little bit, but you know, it wasn't for me. I mean, but it was a wonderful experience after the huge peak of the Doors, and you know, my classmates were, forget it, Sean Penn and all the most famous actors you can imagine before they got famous.
Right. Well, so in a general sense, you don't have to be specific, but are you still in LA, or for some reason I'm thinking you're going towards Santa Barbara somewhere? Are you still in the LA area?
I'm in Santa Monica, where my mom was born in 1904.
Amazing.
Only the two of us are not native. The Chumash were here before us, the first peoples.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you were still like right in the hood there, in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. Let's see. Anybody want to ask a question? If you're on the Zoom, you can pipe in. And I don't know, Denise, if you're seeing any popping up on Facebook. Was there a second thing in particular as we're going along here that you, in the book, that you wanted to read?
Oh, that's right.
You mentioned.
Let me put it.
You got a paperback version, or is that the?
That's a paper.
copy?
No, this is a galley.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
ML, I've got 3 sections, just a paragraph each. One on Jim, one on Ray, and one on Willie Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
So you choose.
Well, you know, probably everybody wants. Well, I want to know about Ray, but everybody probably wants to know a bit about Jim.
I got an idea. Why don't I read all 3?
Yeah, the Willie one's pretty good. That whole thing of playing with his son, and then Willie and the bus going to the club, and all that's pretty good.
All right. Here's the thing on Jim. When we first met, the term shaman wasn't in the cultural lexicon yet. Even though I hadn't heard of it, I read it in Jim's poems. He was well aware of the technique of the spiritual leaders in so-called primitive tribes, how they would take psychedelic plants, get into a trance, and heal people. Jim had been a literary scholar for many years, soaking up books and poetry like a sponge. He had started writing at the age of 14 and had volumes and volumes of journals chock full of his writing. Poems, rants, prose, stories spilled out of his notebooks. In the later interviews, he said that his life felt like a bow being pulled back for 22 years, then let go. Mm-hmm. So that's a little taste of Jim Morrison.
Mm-hmm. And what about Ray?
Yeah.
Was Ray, you know, because wasn't Ray the older person, or the oldest in the band?
Yeah. He was kind of the father figure dude.
That's what I wondered. Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Ray splitting his brain in 2. He simultaneously had to lock into a repetitive bass pulse with his left hand and support Jim's lyrics playing chord changes with his right. To do this, he said he thought of playing boogie-woogie bass lines that he learned as a kid in Chicago. If that wasn't enough, he occasionally came up with the most memorable keyboard hooks, musical segues, in popular music. Think of the intro to Light My Fire. Da, 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 da. It's a circle of fifths played in a Baroque, Bach-like style. This keyboard part is permanently stamped on everyone's brain. We will never forget it. Or take what he created in Riders on the Storm, the mysterious sounds supporting Jim's dark lyrics. It was an incredible extended piano solo that I rode with him up and down the full arc of human emotions, from pianissimo to fortissimo and everything in between. That solo of Ray's will also be stamped on all our brains forever.
Mm. And I was just thinking of one thing about Ray as I see Eddie up there with our friend from the Mugs. It was Ray using that Rhodes for the bass, and a friend of ours had a stroke at a young age and so forth, and he thought about Ray playing that instrument, and as the bass, he was a bass player, and he started playing. He's quite good at it and uses it, and he's still playing rock and roll. So Tony Muggs is his name.
Lou, you're waving your hand. You want to?
Yeah, Lou, go jump in. Lou?
Unmute, Lou.
I had to unmute. I was waving hi to Eddie. Hey!
There you go.
So, what questions do you have? Any of you? I can, there's some of us in the Zoom room here, most again on Facebook. Denise, are there any Facebook questions coming through that we could throw out or want to? Ruben lost power in his phone. He's charging it right now.
If there's
I was just going to say, when I first saw the Doors in Detroit, it was May, I think, of '68. And I used to tell people this, and I don't know if I don't think they believe me because of the image. Oh, Ruben's coming in this way. Good. I don't think they believe me because of the nature of what the Doors became. But what
venue did you see us at?
It was Cobo Hall.
Oh,
and you talk about, but I know there's some great Cobo shows, but this had to be the first one, because I tell people Jim Morrison had a cranberry, because we all wore cranberry sweater and white Levi's on, and people have this leather pant image. And I remember he jumped off the stage and walked up the middle singing. It might have been When the Music's Over. And nobody mobbed him. Nobody grabbed him. He just kind of doing a performance and walking back. And I found that to be pretty amazing. But I think you mentioned something about it, because you mentioned, I think on that show was the Wonderful World of Arthur Brown with his head on fire. I think you talk about that in the book.
Yeah.
And then the blues guy, the famous Chicago blues guy, and I'm blanking.
Albert King?
No,
yeah.
He was on the bill, which was really quite incredible.
Yeah, he sat in with us.
So in those early days, you guys weren't sporting leather pants and lizard belts and all
that. Yeah, when Jim wrote the line, "I am the Lizard King, I can do anything," I thought, he's bought his own myth. Here, let me give you a little paragraph on Jim out of this Seeker's book.
Okay.
The late, great Tom Petty, the superb song craftsman, told me a theory of his when we were talking about Jim. Some artists, the very, very great ones, come along with the flame turned all the way up, and the flame is all the way up, and you use a lot of fuel fast, and you've just got to get the heat that comes off of it. Morrison was full of creativity that had to get out one way or another. The spirit in the bottle eventually doused the flame. But all of us were blessed with his creative spirit for 27 years that he roamed the planet and gave us the gift of sound.
I just saw an interesting question. Denise, can you unmute? And that question was on Facebook.
Yeah, I didn't know.
It was from Ra, who's a friend of ours from Detroit, but he's been in LA for years.
Yeah, it says that I heard that John, Robbie, and Ray did not like the Doors movie by Oliver Stone. Any comment on that?
Yeah, good. Ray did not like it at all because Ray went to film school at UCLA and he thought he could direct it. Well, they're not going to give you millions of dollars with a student resume. And so there was, what can I say? He was telling Oliver Stone how to make the movie and eventually got kicked off the set. Robbie is sort of on the fence. I think it's good. I like it. It's a 6-year career crammed into 2 hours. It's just an impression. It's a lot of 40% of it is poetic license. And Oliver is really going for the tortured artist. That's the arc of that. And he got it. Now there's another another film that is a documentary that Johnny Depp narrated called When You're Strange.
That's good. Yeah, yeah.
It has more of the 60s, the time period. And that's what was lacking in Oliver's movie. Although I got to say, Val Kilmer should have got nominated for an Oscar. He gave me the creeps on the set. He was so close to Jim. So those
agree.
two together kind of represent the whole thing for me.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend When You're Strange, the documentary, because it's got Jim, a film of Jim pretending it's after he died, but before that, walking around in the desert and getting
it was a film Jim made, and we got the footage and we put it in there. Tom DiCillo was the director, wonderful, and we kind of had Jim. He had a beard and was towards the end of his life. He was kind of like the narrator of the film, just sort of driving through the film or whatever. We screen it at Sundance, and some critic storms out after the first 3 minutes. You cast an actor playing Jim. That's sacrilege. It was the real deal. Go back in there and see the rest of the movie, please.
No, it's a real deal. I picked that up right away.
Yeah.
And thought, wow, what a great technique and how mysterious to do that. So what else we got? Question for John from Mark Levin from DPAN. Do you have any favorite poems from Jim that stand out to you?
Oh, wow.
Does anything pop into your mind? Well, you were talking in, I think in your book about the American Prayer, which I'm going to play for my performance class.
I was going to just do that excerpt from that poem, but Ruben, you're back, yeah?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Maybe, is there any questions for Ruben? I'm going to go get a hand drum and do this poem.
Cool.
I got a Ruben question. What was your involvement with Johnny Otis?
Well, Johnny Otis was always a mentor. I mean, in terms of his music, big influence on me as a young R&B singer. And when was it? 83. He asked me and a couple of the guys from the Jets to appear with him on a New Year's Eve show at the Olympic Auditorium. I think it was New Year's '83. Yeah. So we sang a couple of tunes with him there, and later he had a radio show on KPFK, and I was a guest a couple of times with him on that. But it was great to work with, man. He was, very easygoing, but yet very professional, and great guy.
And was Shuggy hanging around backstage?
Not at that time. Not at that time. Now, the thing is, I went to Johnny's memorial when he passed away in 2012. And my mentor, who also wrote the intro, both the guys that wrote the intro was sitting right in front of me. Professor George Lipsitz got up and gave an amazing testimonial and really inspired me. So they came back. He came down and sat down. I leaned over to him and said, George, I'm going to start my memoir tonight. So that's how the memoir got started. was at Johnny Otis Memorial.
Wow.
Wow.
Good. That's interesting as hell. John, so you got the hand drum, and do you want to maybe, in a sense, we'll close out with?
I was thinking of closing out. Thank you, ML. We're psychic. So I'll do that at the end.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
I wanted to read one more little thing from the Willie Nelson chapter.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I'm on the bus with him. I say, how old is that guitar of yours? As old as you? Willie smiled, and I continued, I hate new drum heads. I like the old ones who talk back to me. They have more character. Willie knew exactly what I meant. He had ridden Trigger. He named his guitar after Roy Rogers' horse for a long time. Trigger was a hollow body guitar that he was still picking on after 50 years, even though the instrument now had a hole in the front put there when a drunk stepped on it in a club. I would say that the hole probably added to the seasoned sound, but the guitar's soulful tone mainly came from the picker. He used an electric pickup to get both amplification and a warm wood sound. Once again, to musicians, it's all about sound. I'm generalizing here, but country music is warm, heavy metal is cold, rock and roll is both, as is classical. Classical has more of the full range of sound vibrations, but all music is vibratory. It either tickles the little hairs in your ears or scares the shit out of them.
Perfect. All right. So we'll go out with this poem that you're actually going to play a little bit too.
Okay, we're ready to go out.
Yeah. Well, and thanks everybody for.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for.
And make sure you get these books at Carrie's. Carrie, do you want to say anything about books? He's hiding under the cash register.
Well, I just want to say, my paperback's coming out in November, let's say. If, God willing, the pandemic's really calmed down, then I would have, like Ruben, in person reading and signing, and I missed that so much. And so hopefully.
Well, we're going to have you here. Don't worry about it.
Well, there you go.
We're going to buy your plane ticket even. How about that?
Oh, okay. So are we ready to sign up?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Thanks,
So,
everyone.
Thanks. Hey, Ruben, I'll see you in Boyle Heights, huh?
Oh, yeah, man. All right.
I'll see you in LA.
So,
All right.
This is a little excerpt from American Prayer, Jim's prayer for our country. And what else do I want to say about it? That's self-explanatory. See if I can remember it. This will be interesting. Do you know the warm progress under the stars? Do you know we exist? Have we forgotten the keys to the kingdom? Have we been born yet? And are you alive? Let's reinvent the gods, all the myths of the ages. Celebrate symbols from deep elder forest. Have we forgotten the lessons of the ancient war? You know we are being led to slaughters by placid admirals and that fat, slow generals are getting obscene on young blood. Wow. I'm sick of doubt. I'm sick of dour faces staring at me from the TV tower. I want roses in my garden bower, dig? Royal rubies, like the book beat. O great creator of being, grant us one more hour to perform our art and perfect our lives.
Thank you, John Densmore. Yes, when the paperback comes out, we will have you and Ruben. We'll fly you guys out here and definitely do some talks, readings, signings.
Yeah, we'll do consafos.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. But in the meantime, yeah, at some point soon, Ruben will have to connect. But I'm gonna come out and just chill for a little bit there, and I will get John up in Laurel Canyon there. He probably knows the neighborhood, and we'll chill out.
Yeah, we'll socially distant hang.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the
All right.
questions. Do go to BookBeat and
Mike, can I just say one
oh,
word?
there you are. There's Carrie.
Hi. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed both these books a lot. I kind of didn't want to like John's book, but it's really absorbing, and it's a very it's a fast read, but it's really interesting, and it's all over the map. And he does a lot of really interesting stuff with this. And the idea of the seekers, I think, is a really interesting way to approach this material, and especially the classical music is a really brilliant piece in the book. It's, I think, one of the best written pieces. The dude from the LA Symphony, the conductor.
Yeah.
Great piece. And then this one is just fantastic. I think Ruben it's somebody called it in the introduction, the underground, the beneath the underground of East LA. And it has that kind of vibe, you know. It's very interesting how you take all these personal tragedies and make them very interesting. And I mean, you've done almost everything you could do in life, you know, from ditch digging and you know, the sulfuric acid of this book is amazing. So, and
do you have some copies of it?
Yeah, we do. We do have copies,
oh,
and we have some signed book plates from Ruben. And I don't know if John, we have a lot of John's book as well.
I sent plates, but
you did. Okay, so
yeah,
we're waiting.
They'll be there Monday.
Great. So, anyways, we do have plates from Ruben. They're very beautifully little signed.
Oh, hey, all right.
Book plates. And so
and John's are coming. John's are coming.
Yeah, we've had some sales for both. So thank you. Anyways,
thanks.
Enjoyed your books.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Gary.
And thank you for the music, both of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And I'll be in touch with both of you and talking to you. But thanks so much again, you guys. Really, really great afternoon.
Thank you, Emil. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Seeing everybody. Take
Thanks.
care.